Hello. Not going to go through with the entire catchphrase or whatever the hell you call it for this particular video. Just going to dive right into discussion here. Hello. So I got a YouTube comment the other day, or I actually checked this email, which is pretty much ancient and dusty, and I only check it every once in a while anymore. There was a recent comment on one of my older Shipping Corner videos, and there was one specific little thing that stood out about it. I'm going to keep this anonymous and just not just the meat of the comment itself, or what the person was saying, got me thinking. They brought up a point that I've heard a couple of people put out there, kind of toss around. And that'd be, or I'm not sure if this is a general gist, I'm paraphrasing here, but why is it that with some stories or even fandom focus, the greater emphasis is on the romantic relationship or couples and stuff, rather than some of the more significant and deeper friendships? They even went on to make a general point that there are indeed some friendships. Actually, I think this blanket statement has a lot of truth to it. Friendships in just about any kind of media tend to be written much more strongly or have more narrative significance or even character development significance than what the romance would. It's kind of interesting to think about. It's not that you can't have a really well written romance or one that develops both characters. It just, most of the cartoons I'm even thinking of, most of the stuff that first comes to mind. Of course, it's not fair to label this across the board, but this is a really broad, generalized topic, painting really broad strokes here. But one of the first ones that comes to mind, Danny Phantom. The romance between Danny and Sam was pretty staggered and dragged out. And looking back at it now, that stuff drove me nuts as a kid, but just looking at it now, all the highlights and major points were there that, oh, these two are going to get together. It will they, won't they kind of plot thread. But what major impact does it really have in regards to the characters? Or does it really add anything significant to the story outside of a couple of episodes? Now this particular discussion point I'd want to come back to and elaborate on a bit later, since I haven't watched all the way through Danny Phantom yet, but as a general rule, what I've seen so far, it kind of played a role in the Ember episode in season 1, but the bigger emphasis was on what kind of overall theme, tone, or takeaway the audience would get. Most of the Ember episode was shipping fodder, and the big takeaway was there's a time and a place for romance or something like that. And ugh, I am not doing a very good job here. There's a specific thing I wanted to discuss in regards to. Okay, I'm just going to shelve this particular discussion since it's a better idea to tackle a more specific subject or topic and have specific examples to go about discussing it, because just throwing whatever to the wall and seeing if it sticks isn't a very good idea. What that particular comment got me thinking about was last week's latest round of OKKO episodes. Finally got caught up on that. And it got me thinking about something. I'd honestly be really upset if Rad and Enid became the canon couple. I would. What's nuts is that the first episode that they really started delving further into that particular character dynamic, I went nuts with the shipping and stuff and drew fan art and stuff. Even at that point, I saw it as a strictly fan-made thing. No matter what fandom you're going to get into, people love to toss characters together and ship the two leads and that kind of thing. And I was even low-key okay with the idea of what if they did kind of set up a romance with these two? What if they did go ahead and go for it? But as time went on, especially after that particular episode, just biggest thing, I switched camps to a different ship. This is one of the few cases where I can say that I do honestly prefer one ship over another one. And then you get as far as this week's episode, another major Rad and Enid thing. It I even go as far as saying that this is one of my favorite episodes in the entire series, and it's just Rad and Enid driving along in Rad's van and sort of talking to each other, just kind of general casual hanging out. And that particular episode leads to Rad expressing Enid's teasing and stuff really grates on him sometimes, and it makes him wonder, what kind of dynamic do we have? We don't really real talk. What is the substance of our friendship? Why are you always ragging on me? Just kind of starting to poke the dynamic you see throughout most of the series. That question is kind of there. You see Rad and Enid get along okay, or as much as what the status quo would put out there. But this is starting to touch on and dig at. Well, it touches on scenes like there's another episode where Enid's casually hanging out with Rad and KO over at Rad's trailer, and you have scenes like Red Action shows up in her great big tank, and Enid pretty much immediately bails as soon as the quote-unquote cooler friend shows up. Looking at scenes like that just on surface level, it seems a bit callous, for lack of a better description. Now, don't get me wrong, the scene itself was funny. But you have scenes like that and just her generally teasing Rad and that kind of thing. But them sitting together in the van and just Rad addressing this, like openly addressing how often she teases him. It's one of the most direct moments in the series you're going to see affirmation that, yes, there's more to this dynamic than just these two teasing each other. I'd actually say that the entire spate of episodes kind of pushes the whole team squad dynamic a bit further than what the series has so far. Like, Enid's a lot more huggy and openly physically affectionate than she has been in previous episodes, which it's kind of interesting. I didn't expect the series to go in that direction, but I digress. This particular episode was focusing specifically on the Rad and Enid friendship. I was very pleasantly surprised, since I wasn't sure if the series was going to touch on this again or do anything further with it, but that particular episode just showcases there's so much potential for a strong platonic relationship between a male and female character. It grinds me a little that it grinds my gears a little that you kind of have to go out of your way to point out examples of strong platonic friendships between male and female characters that just stay platonic. They stay platonic, and it's a strong, fairly fleshed out, fairly well written dynamic. Honestly, that particular point right there, wanting to see more significant, just platonic male-female friendships and fiction in general, that's a big reason why I wouldn't be too keen on seeing those two become canon. I doubt it's going to either, and whatever fears or doubts I had about it were pretty misplaced, because why else would a series have an episode like... shoot, I should know the name of this. I still consider it one of my favorites in the series as a whole. Second First Date. Why would a series like this have an episode like that if they were gonna have the two leads get together? I don't know. This might seem like a little bit of a ridiculous discussion topic, but I guess I'm kind of hoping that other cartoons or pieces of fiction will take the lead and further explore stuff like this, especially with older characters. Like a couple of the other friendships I can think of, or a couple of the other relationships in any series I can think of where you have a male and female character being friends, they tend to be kids or a bit younger. But how many series are there with prominent leads that are preteens to teenagers? Male and female leads, especially, where the two leads don't end up together. Or at least implied that they get together later. How many series are there? I know that there's a lot more out there than would immediately come to mind, but OKKO is pretty much the only one that's coming to mind for me right now. Most of the other ones I can think of. Star versus the Forces of Evil. Okay, I'm probably going to be touching on something a bit controversial here. I'll admit it, I started out shipping Starco. And as time's gone on, kind of look back at some of the earlier episodes or what kind of... Don't get me wrong, that's the romance they're going with. The romance in the series is fine, not going to touch on that in general. But looking at some of the earlier episodes or all the stuff pre-Blood Moon Ball, there was a lot of potential in what kind of dynamic Star and Marco had there. Or what kind of dynamic they were playing with in those episodes. Just the quirky, spontaneous gal bouncing off of the more straight-laced, kind of grounded guy. I guess what I'm trying to say is, would it be possible to get another cartoon with a couple of leads like that? Like straight man goofball dynamic or whatever kind of dynamic would really work. Male and female lead, and just keep them friends through the entire run. Yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to get out of my system. If I ever did consider doing a reboot of what kinds of series and such I've done here on YouTube, like if I were going to make something similar to the Shipping Corner or whatever else, I'd want to make sure that there was a concurrent series next to it that talked about and thoroughly discussed other character dynamics, or even just why not just make an umbrella series that tackled character dynamics in general? Because even though I'm talking about character friendships here, one that I specifically find interesting and hope stays the way that it is, there's other character dynamics that don't really get a lot of discussion or major focus either. Like, how about father-daughter, father-son, or mother-daughter and mother-son relationships in cartoons? How familial relationships are written in cartoons? I think there's been a couple of people that have tackled how unconventional Steven Universe is in regards to the family you have there, like Steven and the Crystal Gems. I know there's been people that have unpacked that, but how about setups like, even though you wouldn't really have a lot to explore here, there'd still be enough to merit a small or interesting discussion. Clyde and his dads on The Loud House. Or even looking at earlier cartoons. Danny Phantom kind of sticks out again here. This is one of the things that I give a lot of praise for in regards to character writing and development, etc. It's so easy to have a competent mom and an idiot dad trope play out, where the dad is always the butt of the joke, he doesn't really do much, and that's the length of his character. But then you have Jack. He's kind of doofy, he's doofy and kind of clumsy, but he can step up to the plate and really get things done when he wants to. He definitely cares about his kids. There's an episode that I watched recently that Well, the main plot was about Danny and his mom reconnecting and developing their bond. The B plot was Jazz and Jack connecting with each other, getting to know each other better, and just touching moment where Jazz learns to or reestablishes some kind of trust or finds a way to reconnect with her dad. I think those kinds of dynamics and parts of cartoons are worth discussing or exploring. Of course, that said, you'd have a lot more to explore with something like Danny Phantom since there's more episodes where the parents play a fairly prominent role. But I wouldn't want to keep discussion like that restricted to just prominent characters like that since okay, I'm coming up with a lot of examples here. You also have the family and Harvey Beaks. A little bit unconventional with gender roles or what the setup is there. Like you have the working mom, the stay-at-home dad, and there's an episode focusing on the bond between Harvey's dad and the grandpa. That one really touched me. I don't know, that's another thing that I really love to see in cartoons and would love to see pushed and explored a bit more. Just bringing the parents to the forefront, bringing the parents or other relatives having episodes focusing specifically on that dynamic. Whether it's whether it's a mom and a dad, two dads, a couple of moms, I just love to see more emphasis on the family and that brought to the forefront. Looking at the comments here, favorite cartoon and or anime dad. Turn it, that's kind of a hard one. Hmm. I'd have to say for the moment Jack Fenton, but that's because that's the most recent cartoon I've seen where the dad really came to the forefront and was an active part of the show. I've got some others, or just okay. It's really hard to pick between Jack and the dad from Harvey Beak since they're both fantastic in their own way. I'll have to come back to that particular question and give it a bit more thought. I had a couple of characters for this picked out, but they're just not coming to mind right now. It'd be a pretty tough pick for favorite cartoon mom too, because thinking about all the most recent cartoons I've watched, or cartoons or media I've been watching recently, you have Maddie Fenton, and then really got to give credit where credit is due for Star's mom, is Star versus the Forces of Evil. I think I'd be leaning a bit more towards Moon Butterfly for that particular department right now, since her dynamic with Star hits a bit close to home in some respects, since I I don't know. I like how the show focuses, or how Star versus dedicates screen time to Star's relationship with her mom and them trying to figure out how to better understand and bounce off of each other. Like Moon getting a bit overprotective and just wanting the best for her kid, where Star is trying to. It's the whole coming of age story and starting to lock horns with her parent for lack of a better description, since there's stuff she needs to do. She's the next queen, so there's certain things and responsibilities she needs to pick up and learn, that kind of thing. I just like how the show's handled it. In some respects, how Moon reacts to certain things or how she approaches taking care of Star, like especially the overprotective thing. That hits home since that's what my own mom is like, and that's the biggest reason why that one struck a few chords with me. Hmm. Just kind of thinking about this topic in general. In regards to other character friendships or dynamics, I think there's interesting potential in talking about a big group of friends or the quote unquote squad. There's probably a lot more discussion or analysis on that since you have so many series that focus more on the bigger cohesive group. That's pretty much a trope in and of itself, but still a lot of interesting potential in discussing. It's pretty easy to cherry pick a couple of examples for this one, but like the three Mascaritas or the three leads of Mucha Lucha, that was one of my favorite cartoons as a kid. Like, kind of discussing how effective is this particular trio? How do they, or why does their dynamic work? Or what is it about these three that works? I don't know. I think if you're going to approach discussing how effective or cohesive the squad is, an interesting tack to approach it from, or an interesting way to approach it, would be how much are individual character relationships fleshed out? What friendships or dynamics are focused on the most often? And a big thing, something that kind of bothers me, especially with you know how many fuck yeah friendship animes are out there. Fuck yeah friendship being a being a big plot point for just about any anime out there. Why not pick a squad or setup or group from an anime that subverts or either supports or has justification for the fuck yeah friendship thing that they push in your face? And what kind of setups would subvert that to some degree? This is speaking about it or looking at it from a very broad perspective. Just there's one. Okay, I know this discussion's all over the place. I'm just going to come right out and say what I'm thinking. Of the shonen anime that I've checked out, I've only checked out a handful, so I really can't comment on this too much. I tried checking out Fairy Tail once. This is the most fuck yeah friendship anime I've ever seen, in the respect that every line, every monologue has to be the lead shoving it in your face and down your throat. I don't mind corny friendship speeches or big dramatic monologues or whatever. What bothers me about it is there justification for the over the top corny speech? Is there substantial backing for it? Most of the time, no. Or maybe even with what few character dynamics he had fleshed out and developed or explored in the show, with how often you might as well have the lead Natsu running around saying friendship, friendship, friendship like a Pokemon, with how often he spews monologues about how fantastic and strong his bonds of friendship are. It loses its impact after the third or fourth time he said it, and there just any. Why does every bad guy need to know how strong and powerful your friendship is? I got through at least 50 episodes of Fairy Tail before just giving up on it. Again, I can stand cornball cheese and stuff, but the best way to describe my experience with this particular anime is paint by numbers. It knew how to get all the tropes out there, line them up in such a way, rope you in with interesting action or an interesting premise, and then, man, I really think this particular show is an endurance test. An endurance test because you keep waiting for something significant or to happen. But yeah, that's just my take on it, though. If someone does enjoy Fairy Tail, I don't blame them. There are enough elements there that I could see it being a fun, cheesy series to watch every once in a while. It's just one of those things that, yeah, I really wouldn't recommend trying to binge watch through it or something like that. Or if you're expecting something with a little bit more depth or characterization to it, you're not going to find it here. Heck, my experience with anime is pretty touch and go at best. I only watch a couple of series every once in a while. When I was first trying to get into it, I am one of those people that at 14 I was obsessed with Naruto. I I have a Sand Village headband sitting somewhere around my parents' house. It's embarrassing, but and I'm yet another example of one of those. I started learning how to draw because I really wanted to draw my bad Mary Sue ninja character in as close a style as I could to what the mangaka did. I wanted to be able to draw in the style of the Naruto anime and manga. Just that didn't happen. But those particular roots are there. I'm not really sure what happened over the course of high school. Just Naruto was one of the few anime I watched. I was in the same category as people who knew or generally knew anime as Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Big Three. That was as far as my knowledge went for a while. It wasn't until college that I really started trying to branch out and check out more stuff. And the biggest reason for that was because I met a cute guy and he was an otaku and just, yeah. I tried checking out more anime because I was like, ooh, if I watch more anime, then I can get in good with this guy. I can impress him with my knowledge of all the tropes and staples and weeaboo nerdy stuff. This guy really was a hardcore otaku. He used to be known for wandering around wearing cat ears. One time, he brought in stuff that he imported from Japan. It was some pretty interesting stuff. He was a nice, friendly guy. Just, yeah, I digress. I'm not really sure why I fell off of anime in high school and why it took that long to get back onto it, but I digress. First couple of shows I tried to check out, I was trying to venture beyond typical shonen staples or something that wasn't just another rehash of Dragon Ball Z or whatever. One of the first ones I came across was Rosario and Vampire. And let's just say that's how I discovered that harem anime or the harem genre is not my thing. The protagonist was bland. Most of the episodes were fairly formulaic. I wasn't really getting invested in the fan service shots that they had going on every other scene or having arguments about who's best girl. That wasn't really my thing. I gave up on anime for a while after that because I was so scared that I'd come across something with an interesting premise where I'd like to know more about the world. Like you have a fantasy world with monster creatures or people going to monster high school, and I'm more interested in knowing more about the monsters and the world building and stuff. But this anime really, but instead, that's not the focus. That's just a backdrop for sexy bud time. Like I didn't realize that I was so scared of coming across something else where I was more interested in the background and story building than what the anime was really focusing on. It took a while to come back to it, and yeah, I'm still pretty choosy about what stuff I check out even now. I by this point I've gotten used to the fact that fan service or certain elements of fan service are pretty much a staple in most anime you're going to come across. It's a thing that's there, and some of the anime I prefer is more low key or it's not quite as focused on or emphasized as it would be in other genres or types of shows. Like pretty much come to the point now where I'm not going to check out harem. I'm not going to check it out, period, because that's just not my thing. Most of the other stuff I've checked out, I've been leaning toward, or most of it's been some kind of shonen series like Soul Eater, Hunter x Hunter. Those are the first two. I've been watching a lot of My Hero Academia recently. Eagerly awaiting the next episode. Can't wait for that to come out tomorrow. That's one that I've been meaning to check out the manga for too, because I remember when I first checked it out, putting up some kind of post on Tumblr, rambling about, hey, it'd be pretty interesting if you had a case like Batman in the series. Just using Batman as that's one of your typical examples for this guy doesn't have any superpowers. But he makes up for it, well, in Batman's case, with an insane amount of money, and he's the world's greatest detective. You have that kind of pair of traits, and he can go toe to toe with Superman, the entire Justice League, etc. It would be insanely interesting to see a character like this show up in a world where everybody has superpowers. Like, superpowers is the norm. And somebody replied saying, there's a character that does show up like that a bit later in the series. Or more specifically in the manga. That's one of the biggest reasons why I've been meaning to check it out. And it's been 2 or 3 years since I saw that comment. I feel so bad for not checking that out yet, because just I've invested enough in the setup and world building and such for this show that, yes, I want to see the show's take on a human that manages to stack up next to other heroes with quirks. Well, quirks being superpowers in the series and stuff. I have been interested in trying to expand a bit from just looking at shonen anime and stuff. Like, looking at what other genres and such would have to offer. Really interested in looking for other mecha titles. Like, the only 2 I've seen as of this point are Gurren Lagann and most recently finished up Darling in the Bronx. I love how over the top and absurd most Trigger studio animes get. Like, that seems to be a staple. You have Gurren Lagann, which is pretty much a subversion of mecha tropes and how over the top and crazy everything gets. I'd like to know a bit more about what a standard mecha anime is. Like, get a better feel for what's a more serious, down to earth story with giant robots and stuff. Because if I watch back through Gurren Lagann after getting a better idea for that, I'd understand, or there'd be more weight to what some of the subversions and such would be. I've also watched through Kill la Kill. Just the best way to describe a Trigger show from the couple that I've seen, or what I'd be expecting if an anime was just under their particular helm. Over the top, gonna be absurd in some way, shape, form, or respect. You're expecting things to get incredibly crazy. Like, things are going to slowly build and escalate over the course of the series to the point where you have big robot battles in space, or a couple of gals fighting in really skimpy outfits with earth-shattering punches, and just I know there's more to it than that. I just don't feel like I'm the best person to try and unpack or tackle some of the themes or messages that either show would have. Like, I remember checking out a couple of videos from people who commentate in the anime community saying there have been books, entire books written about all the different references and comments, or all the different references and such that Kill la Kill packs in every episode. There's been a book written about this. I've been half tempted to read it since I never would have guessed. I wouldn't know. That it's an entirely different world of analyzing a piece of media or looking at something. Something outside of what would be in my wheelhouse or what little is there for critical examination and explanation of things. Like looking at general story structure or something, I could tell you general things like I think that plot point needed a little bit more build up, or I don't really like how this scene contributed to this character, or I think this needs more follow up. But that's really tip of the iceberg stuff. I think anybody who's watched several anime or knows or anime cartoons or looked closely at media and has a general idea of how certain plot structure and such plays out, or even read a few things about basic storytelling, I think a lot of people could pick out most of the stuff that I can. It's another thing entirely to be able to look at something like Kill la Kill and pick out certain references or iconography and stuff, and give this really big critical explanation as to what that adds to the show's themes and overall tone and stuff. Okay, I'm going to stop just rambling there. Something that I've been thinking about over the past couple of days, or what has me really interested in checking out more mecha anime and stuff, is after finishing up Darling in the Bronx, I've been looking at other people's takes on it, like what some of the other comments and criticism have been, and I'm really tempted to check out Evangelion next. Since one of the videos I watched pretty much said that a lot of the basic plot points were taken or borrowed straight from that one, or just it. Even if you take a peek into the world of anime and stuff, it's hard not to see some kind of reference to Evangelion. I feel like I'm missing out on something major. Like, how much of an impact does this have on the landscape? There are so many different pieces of work that reference different parts, pieces, and aspects of it. And it just goes right over my head. I don't get the reference because I haven't seen it. I feel like I'm missing out on some stuff since the way animation is going now, or what kinds of influences and such end up in modern cartoons. Steven Universe takes a bunch of references and or takes inspiration from Revolutionary Girl Lieutenant, or that's what I've heard from other people. I feel like I'm missing out on some part of how that inspired or influenced certain aspects or elements of it because I haven't seen that. And then when I watch most of OKKO, I can pick out that some character designs have anime influence to them, like the shape of the eyes or just base structure. I can pick up on general things like that, but I don't have the full picture. What influenced this particular part of a character design? What parts and pieces did some of these writers and animators take from anime or borrow from there to inject here? One of the things that really roped me into OKKO is that a lot of Ina's character is inspired or influenced by stuff grabbed from Naruto. That's one of the few anime I know. That's one of the few things I can actually pick out and comment on. Okay, looking at some of the comments here. Have you watched The Good Place? I haven't really heard of that one. I'll have to look that up. Overlord, I'll add that to the list of things to look up. Little Witch Academia, that's another one that I have watched through. Absolutely loved it. And a little bit of the earlier discussion was about how significant friendship and stuff can be in a series, the dynamic between Akko and Diana would be a really interesting topic to explore and discuss. Trying to think about what about Little Witch really stood out to me. Like, beyond the really bouncy, energetic animation style, I really like Diana's character, to be honest. I'm I wouldn't be surprised if other anime played with characters like that or that was a common trope. But I'm so used to seeing the really popular, top of her class, kind of snooty girl fitting a certain fitting a certain archetype. Like, this is coming from someone that watches a lot of Western cartoons and stuff, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I I really liked seeing that there was more to Diana than just that demeanor. Like, she's snooty, she comes across as kind of cold and standoffish, supposedly better than everybody else. But when you look at scenes where she kind of lectures Akko or makes certain comments, it's not completely. It's not necessarily her trying to be mean. It's her trying to point out, hey, you need to be a little bit more level headed or you need to practice a little bit more. And then you get as far as Akko and Diana connecting on a deeper level, and you see the other side of Diana, or that she reflects Akko and all that fun stuff, and just really digging into how the protagonist and her rival reflect each other, what the significance of that is, how Akko has a little bit of a natural talent where Diana really had to struggle and work to get the level of proficiency she has, or proficiency she has. This is going to seem like a bit of a ridiculous point, but if more cartoons are taking cues from anime, not just stylistic, but possibly story beats and such too, I would love to see someone take a page from Little Witch Academia and apply it to your typical, the popular girl versus the more average or average plain Jane girl. Like, in Danny Phantom, you had tension between Sam and Paulina, just a dynamic like that, where it starts out where the two are at odds because they don't understand each other and one might be a bit mean or something like that. Oh, you also have another one with the lead in Brace Face and her bully slash antagonist Nina, I think her name is. And Brace Face's credit, they kind of tackle a little bit there, like show points of understanding between the two characters, but I'd like to see a series further explore or really map out why these two characters are at odds, why one is mean to the other, why they snap at each other, why they want to pull underhanded pranks or whatever. I'd specifically like to see this with a couple of female characters, because you have male characters that have similar dynamics, like the bully and the average kid. Even in most series, the bully ends up, or the male bully ends up becoming a staple part of the group for whatever reason. Thinking of Buford and Baljeet from Phineas and Ferb. Like, Buford starts out as the bully, and then he just kind of integrates into the group, and he and Baljeet have this weird understanding with each other. I want to see that done with a couple of female characters. Like, you have the pretty popular mean girl, and again, there's some point later in the series after the typical dynamic is set up where they realize that they don't understand each other as well as what they could. Or they get better insight as to why one of them acts and behaves and conducts himself in that particular way. And depending on the series, one gets a better insight as to why the other behaves the way she does and things kind of return to status quo or something. Or you could have another one where it starts a bit of a friendship. Like, this is something that you'd have to devote several episodes to, or have an overarching plot to really tackle and unpack the way it need to. But that'd just be really refreshing to see in more Western cartoons. Just positive female friendships. Or just taking a dynamic like that and adding a layer to it. Besides, oh, this gal is just mean. She's mean to the core. There's no reason for why she's mean. She's just mean. Or better yet, if you're going to have a character that's mean for the sake of being mean, could we have more substance to it besides she's just mean? I'm just rambling here. Yeah, I think this is a point that I need to put a pin in, and maybe one of those things that brings me back to writing really rambly blog posts and such about stuff in cartoons. Like, I can just see it now. There's going to be something that pops up in some cartoon down the road that hits all the chords I want it to, or has the potential to, and it just doesn't. And that's going to be what brings me back to writing long, rambly, analytical discussions about this stuff. Looking at one of the questions here, why do you think people love Ghibli so much? Ah, that's a good question. As somebody who likes a lot of the Ghibli movies, I consider Spirited Away one of my favorite anime movies in general. I'll say this much. It'd be great if more anime movies got into the public eye and it was more of a thing for them to come to theaters. I think that should be more of a thing since there's quite a few decent ones out there and I've been meaning to check out more myself. In the case of Ghibli, that particular studio managed to get a push from just the right people to be pushed into the public eye. It has the same kind of clout or recognition as what Dragon Ball Z or Sailor Moon would have for just a casual anime fan or just somebody who casually watches TV. That's one of the biggest things I can think of as to why it's so widely recognized and beloved. That's one part of it. In regards to the movies themselves, please take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I haven't seen a lot of anime movies. I don't know what all goes into the productions and such. This is coming from the perspective of somebody that's seen some anime and generally leans more towards watching American cartoons, trying to broaden my horizons a bit more with this kind of thing. The best way it's been described is that Ghibli is practically the anime equivalent to Disney in some respects, and a really broad, generalized term. It's a publicly recognized name. Most of the movies, stories, and animation are pretty bright, vibrant, colorful, child-friendly, approachable. In some respects, a Ghibli movie, what you'd expect are really abstracted, bizarre, out there visuals. Things that you'd expect to come straight from the mind of a kid with an overactive imagination. There's just something really tantalizing and approachable about the bouncy energy and kind of squiggly lines and some of the character designs. I really think a lot of it has to do with how much more recognizable that is for most people compared to other anime movies. That's just my best guess though. I personally like a lot of the Ghibli stuff because of how fantastical and out there things get. Just the energy and imagination put into character design, movements, and such. But again, I don't know how much I could really say or put out there about that particular topic since I just haven't haven't really seen enough other big anime productions or movies or what other studios have put out to comment beyond that. The other theatrical length movie or movie length production I can think of that I've seen in the past several years. Shoot, I don't remember the name of it. But something like that, it was definitely geared towards an older audience. Definitely meant to be a more reflective, introspective love story kind of thing. I I think it was called I don't want to say the wrong title here, but the basic premise was there's a 15-year-old kid aspiring to be a cobbler, and he meets an older woman or a teacher at the bus stop, and they develop a connection that they probably wouldn't have otherwise if they hadn't met at that spot. Like they develop a significant connection. And the kid starts developing romantic feelings for the teacher, and it's a bit taboo and controversial. And more of the movie is focusing on the introspection and thoughts on the part of both characters, like how interacting with this teacher impacts Cobbler, or what she says and does, how it inspires him to some degree, and in her case, her significant connection or friendship with this cobbler. It's not a romantic connection. They make a point near the end saying that he's had a significant impact on her life and contributed meaningfully to helping her want to reintegrate into society or become a better person. But it's been strictly as a friend. Just that, yeah, a big part of the movie was really showcasing the inner thoughts and introspection of both characters involved. Some of the animation, especially the pans and scenic shots, it looks like it could be real. It looks so photorealistic, or set up in such a way that it'd be difficult to tell the difference between whether or not this was a photo or it had been artistically rendered unless you were looking really closely at it. The big thing in this movie's benefit was a lot of the art direction and the scenes and just the cinematography. Those were the strengths of that particular movie. That's just one movie though. And that was definitely geared towards a specific audience. If I were going to comment on what made Ghibli stand out compared to other movies, I'd want to see, or I'd want to watch other stuff that'd be in the same target demographic or area. Like my guess at what Ghibli's demographic would be general audiences or young kids. That'd just be my best guess. Okay, I just thought of something else in regards to Ghibli movies, how it doesn't really have a structured, coherent plot. Personally, I'm okay with that. I guess after watching enough of them, I just came to the point where if I'm going to sit down and watch one of these movies, I'm in for it. I'm watching to go on a fantastical, absurdist ride. I'm not expecting anything coherent or structured. That's just me though. That said, if there were a Ghibli movie or something else that started out with a more structured and coherent plot and it seemed like it was going to go in a certain direction or have a definitive plot or have a traditional three-act plot structure, I would be a bit disappointed if it started going all over the place when there'd be more potential and it's sticking to a linear plot. Wolf Children. I've seen that pop up quite a bit. I'll have to check that out. All right. I think I've been think I've been rambling long enough for today, so gonna wrap things up for now. The next time I ramble, I'm hoping to pair it with some kind of speed drawing or something so you have something to look at while I'm rambling about God knows what. I'm in the process of moving, so maybe a bit before I get videos like that up. And to be honest, I plan on only uploading one to this particular channel to let people know, hey, I'm still alive and I'm making content like this now, and then starting up a different channel with that kind of stuff. This main channel, still not particularly sure what I'm going to do yet. Probably going to continue to be weird tangents and rambles like this video for a while. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you have a good day. And hoping to have a new video up again within the next couple of months. Hopefully sooner than that.